Okay, since I have nothing more to say, I guess I'll let Jesus say what he has to say. Okay, Jesus, it's on you, buddy. And he said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. This is from the Nag Hammadi library that was found just after World War II. And these are supposedly written by Doubting Thomas, the exact words that Jesus said, and write these words down so everyone will know. Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over all. Now, it also says that the earth is 56 and 80, I think it was. Yep, here it is. Jesus said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. There was giants in the earth in those days. They are the earth. So whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse, and whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. Now that's 56 and 80. Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found the body. Found the body. The earth is literally creatures and bodies. That's all it is. But he who has found the body is superior to the world. And then he says, let him who has grown rich be king, and let him who possesses power renounce it. Whatever that means. He who is near me is near the fire, and he who is far from me is far from the kingdom. Well, I tell you, I felt a lot of fire on me for the last 10 years, so hopefully, Jesus, I'm going to see you, my friend. And I don't care what it is. It could be any day now. It would be fine with me. All right, remember that map? He stretched all the way across North Africa, and then they had a big flare at the end, which is his flary tail. These are his thighs, and they're of human shape. Yes, I agree with that. They look sort of humanish to me. And then they stop right here, and they turn into these coils. And when I say coils, those coils run all the way across, and these are still the skin of those coils. Let it settle in there until you see. That is exactly like some form of leather. All right, do you see it? You show that to anybody that does tanning of leather, and they will say, well, that looks like leather to me. It has to take a while for it to home in. Those are not just sand dunes. That is a pattern of leather. All right, and that's from his coils. You see that? If you look at that carefully, you're going to tell. Anybody that does tanning will look at that and say, yeah, that's what leather looks like when you get right down into it. And I've looked at it with the microscope, all kinds of different leather, and yes, they all look very similar to that. And he ran all the way across here from his human-shaped thighs all the way across, yes, and all the way over this way. And his head would have brushed the stars. And there's his head right there with his red flaring eye, with his red streaming flaring eye coming back like this. All right, and all of the flashy, fluty-looking stuff around his head is all that stuff that they talk about. Streaming all the way down his body. This is his throat, all the way down. You have Google Earth. I'm not going to run this forever. I've done this hundreds of times. This is where he was gashed in the middle of the desert, and red blood is still running out here, which makes plants grow green. This is all the blood that ran out and just collected all over here. This is what they call effluent. It bubbles out of decaying bodies. And that's exactly what all of this stuff is. This is his throat, and it is completely covered by dragon scales. And those scales are plates. And those plates have, in other words, you can articulate his throat. It's not one big solid plate. Each one of these, you see, ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. So he can twist his head up and down, and his plates will twist with him. You see it? That's not just some kind of mountains and hills and so forth. Now, he runs all the way across North Africa, just like it showed on that map, and his tail, well, here's some scales up back here that are also decaying and running off in the desert. And look at how tough these things were. Where do you see the composition of them? Look at this. Look at the different colors. Look at the different textures. Look at the different minerals. Plate after plate after plate. And I have one here. It's the same thing. It's a dragon scale here. It has almost all that same, you see all those same lines? And that's the tab that locks it in. You see all those little lines? And there's blood in here. I've checked it too. There's blood. It runs from down here somewhere. There's blood in it right there. And then it comes out over here. Everything has to be serviced with a little bit of blood. A lot of things don't need much blood, but and this doesn't. But some things need a lot of blood. All your muscles and so forth, that's saturated with blood. But look at how intricate that is. Don't tell me that's an accident. And his tail goes way out to the end here and ends up with feathers. These were some strange creatures. You see that? These are like feathery looking things at the end. It's like what the East Coast dragon has, all these feathers. But that's where it ended up, just exactly what it showed on the map. A big flary thing at the end. Well, let's go back and look at the map. There it is. There's the flary thing at the end. And you come all the way back here and there's this cutthroat. I have nothing more I can say about it. Alright, now don't forget, this book, I don't know anything other than he just sent it to me. I don't know what it costs or where you get it, but it's by Paul Amatucci. And that right there is the USBN number, or ISBN, whatever you call it. Alright, so take a good look. Now, that also mentions Typhon, who is the dragon in the desert. And if you look at this map, this is from 1375. This is Spain. This is North Africa. And what is this thing doing? And why is there a chop across here? Well, I know what it is, and you will in a second, because it is Typhon. And who is Typhon? Well, let's talk about who Typhon was. This is Apollodorus. He wrote, I think it was 150 BC, somewhere around there. And he was writing of the ancient texts, and he said that when the gods had overcome the giants, Earth was still more enraged and had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon, who is the dragon in the desert. He was a hybrid between man and beast. In size and strength he surpassed all the offspring of Earth. Listen to this. As far as his thighs go, he was human shape, and such prodigious bulk that he out-topped all the mountains, and his head often brushed the stars. His thighs, what a strange thing to say, his thighs were like humans, and his head brushed the stars. One of his hands reached out to the west and the other to the east, and from them projected 100 dragons' heads. I can't find those. From the thighs downward he had huge coils of vipers, which when drawn out reached to his very head and emitted a loud hissing. His body was all winged, unkempt, hair streamed on the wind from his head and cheeks, and fire flashed from his eyes. That's what they say about Typhon. Well, let's see if we can find Typhon. Ooh, there's Typhon. You see that? They say rocks don't, you can't get blood out of a rock. Well, I don't think that's accurate. These are both lungs, and the blood came out of this one. Here it is up there. This is the one I had DNA tested. And it was CAT scan. But again, you can't really see much in the CAT scan. You can see a little bit of like coating. You can see the fascia separated, this fabric separated from the underneath, but inside pretty much you really couldn't see a whole lot. Now this one lost all its coating, the fabric, and it's all the way down to the alveoli. And then what happened was it filled in with silicates because of the place where this was entombed had some chemistry or something happened to it that it lost all this fascia, this fabric, and you ended up right down at here. Now I have other ones that are half fabric and half this. Hold on. Here it is. There it is right there. There's another lung. And again, flat as a pancake on one side. Died like that. Now that's the lung, and remember I said there was a tab at the top? There it is right there. That tab locks the lung in up above, and this tab locks the lung in from below. This is the fabric. Very dense, heavy-duty pleura they call it. There's usually everything has like a membrane, it's called fascia. Well, the lung is like a big heavy-duty rubber bag. So this stuff here is called pleura. But this is the same stuff right here as here. Same as this. This is this. Only it's the other side. And it died this side down. All my stuff has one side flat. Now this is a mud fossil that I made, and it didn't come out the way it should have because I didn't know about the hot water flood, and I didn't know about the excess blood. It requires transition metals, and they are inside the blood. Your blood is saturated with transition metals. When they take chicken and so forth, they bleed out. All the blood is basically out of them. So I was missing the transition metals, and I was missing the fact that it had to be literally boiled for a long course of time, simmered, let's say. And with a lot of salts, all the chemistry of the body. All the chemistry of the body is still there in mud fossils because everything was intact as it got boiled up. And in certain places the water was so hot that all the flesh just eroded away and all you had was the organs and so forth inside. In other areas everything stayed. They just like almost perfect, like they were standing there. I'm telling you, it's just bizarre, but that is a fact. Now this I did in a different manner, but you can still turn things into stone, and not even in the mud fossil way. But it's not perfect. But you can see this is turned into stone, and the tendon and the fascia would turn into limestone. All right, so don't forget now. That's the distal phalanges laying sideways, and which is this black pattern here. You can't see it now, it dried up. But these two holes are the arteries. Hold on. You have a vein and an artery coming in. That's the vein side. That's the artery side. The veins clamp off. You see there's one there and one there. And remember I showed you there's the angle? There it is right there. That's where the tendon locked in. This one here was about the same size as this one. Only it eroded away, and what's left inside is the bone. Basically, this is mostly all what was considered the bone. All right, all the flesh is basically gone, except for the artery. I mean the vein. You see the vein is right there? Vein, vein, vein. Artery blows out a hole. A hole, a hole, and a hole. Because the arteries have no restrictions. This ran down like this, and the blood did not blow out of the arteries. And you can see it right there. It didn't blow out. It's a clamp. That one, it blew out, it blew out, it blew out, and it blew out. And that's what you see in these, whoops, right here. This is exactly what happened. You got a vein and an artery coming down. One of them's a vein that comes back, and the artery brings it down. They have two tips at the very end, and then on the sides there's two of each. The red ones just explode right out. They blow right out. In certain cases, not all the time. The veins clamp off literally all the time because they have little valves in them. The valve will not allow the blood to go backwards. That's the design of that valve. Alright, so that's what you got. Alright, that goes back from that video. And here is this fingertip. And that's the vein side, and that's the artery side that blows out. See those three? I'm going to show you in the anatomical. This is actually literally the outline of the bone. It's completely eroded, and all that's left in is the bone, and then this black pattern is called bone black. And there it is right there. That is a distal phalanges. That's the pattern of a distal phalanges, that black. And there it was from back in that video. And then I showed the hand again and some other stuff here. Oh, there's another gigantic wide toe. That's a toe. Huge. I got so much stuff. It's absolutely staggering. Oh, that's the bone ball. And that's this. What happened is that it was laying flat like this, and it eroded all the way off the top. That's why I have so many different levels of erosion. Some of them aren't eroded at all. So, like this one's very, very eroded. This one's very eroded. I believe this was from the same finger. And the bottom, though, the tendon is still there. You can actually see the tendon coming right down the side. And that's the bone ball, and the muscle is still showing up on that bone ball. The other side, it's all eroded away. And these are the layers of the flesh. I have so much information on this. It's very, very hard to allow it to be suppressed in this manner for so long and have nobody stand up for the truth. I mean, where are we supposed to get the truth if we're not from these universities? They're the ones that are making the kids pay outrageous amounts of money to be told what they have to say, and if they don't say what they're told to say, they fail them and they keep the money. So all of this stuff is pretty obvious now, and the evidence is overwhelming and denied. Alright, this is where it becomes really difficult for the untrained eye. Take your time. Hold on a second, let me turn this light off. Look very carefully at this one circular spot. Just take your time. All right, take your time. Look carefully, carefully, carefully. You see that circular spot up at the top here? That's where the bone is. That's where the bone is. Remember I said it sits offset? Normally the bone would be right in the middle. This is a thumb, and that right there is the shadow of the bone. It has just a smidge of a different chemistry than the fleshy part, even though it has been transitioned. Transitions means it's changed. And it's called nucleophilic substitution. All of the stuff that is washing through here over the course of years and years and years in this muddy chemistry invades. And it turns, but still, there is just a taste of chemistry that is not going to be invaded. It's going to stay with just maybe a little smidge of magnesium or a little taste of zinc or something is around that bone that is keeping it from taking on the exact chemistry that surrounds it. I suppose that's the best I can say. You see this? This is the fingertip. This is the side. That is literally where the fingernail was. And here is this fingertip. Now you wouldn't see that. There's no way you can see that. You see this gouge? That's the same gouge as that. This is the same fingertip. There's cuts here. You see those little angles right there? Those angles are where the tendons lock in. And I have other ones that have the exact same angles. They are there. And that's where your fingers get the ability to pull and tug at each other. This is the bottom. And here's where that apical tuft sits at the very bottom. These are the pads, just like you have pads on the bottom of your fingers. What else? Okay, this is the back. This is where you can see it best. Let me come up here. Alright. Now, remember I broke that piece off. This is the piece I broke off. That's where it is, around here somewhere. But this is the back of the fingertip. This one here, it just looks like brown. But you can see in the CAT scan, that is where the blood and the tendons and so forth run up the side. And this is, one of them's a vein, one of them's an artery. That's why you see this one is black and you see this one is white. This is where the bone is. And again, it's offset. And that's because it's a thumb. I'm almost certain. Your thumbs are offset. Your other bones are straight down the middle. So I believe it's thumb. And we can see it. Just take your time. Focus in close. Look at that. I mean, it's just so obvious what you're looking at there. They didn't just grow over here like that for nothing. And this one is the exact same thing, only a different color. That, I believe, is... I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest. It could be the vein, could be the artery, but it's probably the artery, because arteries blow open and leave a hole. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This side's the artery, and the other side is the vein, and they just make solid. They turn solid. So that's pretty good evidence right there, as far as I'm concerned. And DNA tested. Okay, so this is this fingertip, and here it is here in the CAT scan outside. This is where the fingernail was. You can see it. The apical tuft is up in here, a little hard to see in this particular shot. Now, this is what the apical tuft looks like, and here it is right here. That's the apical tuft that sits on the tip of the finger. Now, it's on the top and the bottom. Right, it's both sides, so you don't necessarily see it that well in this anatomical shot, but trust me, it's, well, as a matter of fact, you can see it. You see that round spot right there? That is where the apical tuft is, on the top, and down on this side is where, the apical tuft is on the bottom. Now, it's the same piece. It's just up over the top, the tendons run over the top. At the bottom, all these little straps, you see these little straps? They have balls stuck into there. And that they pull down so you can move your finger and do all that kind of stuff. And you can grip and pull things with your fingertip. Now, let's go a little further. All right, this goes back 7 years ago. I was showing the CAT scans, the DNA, everything. I had all the DNA tests. Everything was done 7 years ago. All right, and this was my old channel. It was destroyed by, I believe, academia, who tried to portray me as an insane person. And it was a very nasty attacks. And I just abandoned this channel. But now I'm going back and seeing how good this work was. See what you think. This is what the bones look like in different structures. Lands this way, that way, big ones, small ones, so forth. And let's go a little deeper in. I'll just point out spots in the video, and I'll try to explain it. All right, so don't forget my absolute great thankfulness to Jesse Urant and Associates for helping us out. And And I know he probably took some heat for it, because I know the guy that did the DNA test took some heat for it too. The academics do not like people stepping into their arena and showing that there's things that aren't exactly correct. And that's all I want to do, is discuss the things that we can see. I'm a material scientist. If something's material, you can examine it, you can understand it, and that's what I do. So let's take a look at the CAT scans Jesse did. And Jesse, Fabio, you guys are the best, absolute best. Okay, this is Jesse Garant and Associates. Absolutely stunning work compared to stuff we had done other places. And what they do is they help companies internally inspect parts and assemblies with their lab-based CAT scans, industrial X-ray services. These guys are top shelf. And they can look inside engines and see if the engines are all right. Archaeology they do now. Well, they did it for me too. So Jesse, and I got to be honest with you, he did it at no charge. They did 7 CAT scans for me. All I had to do was ship it to them, pay, and pay it back. And I show you the CAT scans. They're as good as it gets, because this is, again, nucleophilic substitution. You're going to just see a different, barely shades of things, and you have to look at it closely to understand. But trust me, I do understand, and you will too when you see it. Okay, this is, here it is. It's online, so you can go up and watch this anytime you have little heart desires. And it was done by Helix Biolab. They were extremely professional, very, very good quality work. I was very impressed, and I rarely am. Now, and I worked with the lab director. He was a very good guy. And they did 3 samples. Now, I extracted the DNA, sent them in the glassine bags, the extract. They did all the rest. And he said he stands by his findings. Now, just so long as you understand, if I took my own blood and put it in there and faked it, well, that's different. But I'm showing you anatomically exact creatures, and then extracted the blood deeply from inside, and it was really literally raw blood. And these were the 3 samples, and all the negative controls came back negative. All of the sequences, I don't know what they are, this is kind of a little over my head, but what he did get was excellent quality DNA obtained from the 36-inch tip. That was a huge fingertip, and the lung. Now, those were the 2 really strong ones. The mud part was not quite as strong, but absolutely said no question whatsoever it was human. But these 2 are the ones that he said they're just literally the raw blood. And they're Homo sapien, mitochondrial B, and D loop. And then it shows all the sequencing. And he said it was a very, very good quality. It was very good quality. And again, I was very impressed with their work. So that is the DNA test. Okay, I showed you some of the specimens, and these were all DNA tested, so this is not something that I'm just making up here. And there was blood coming out of them, no problem getting the blood, so and it wasn't contaminated. I didn't contaminate it. There's plenty of blood, and it came out excellent quality. So let's go, and this is how fingertips are just saturated with blood, and that's where I took the blood out of the fingertips. All right, this one and the other one, the giant fingertip, is this one here. And here's how I did it on the giant one. Let me show you. Here it is. All right, that is a giant fingertip. It's almost 3 feet long. I measured, I think I said 36 inches long. The other hand is 4 feet wide. This is 3 feet long, just a fingertip. That's the little pad that bumps into your next bone so that it rocks on there and it doesn't scrape it up. You got your blood in your artery in your vein. Fingernail goes right around like this. All perfect. It's absolutely perfect. This was a piece that was on here. I smashed that off so I could get down inside to get the blood out, which I did. And I took it raw, literally almost raw blood. And here's where I went inside. Hold on a second. Where is it? Here it is. Look at it. The fingerprint was still on there. The fingerprints were still on the fingertip. But you can't get any blood out of here. You see, there's no blood. There's no blood at all. There's almost nothing. It's what they call keratinized. It's just a really dense fabric, so you can do work with your hands. I call it grip skin. Now, you have sweat pores in there, though, and these are the fingerprint ridges. They're just the same as you have on your hand. There's no difference whatsoever. This peeled right off. It just went bam, and it just popped right off. And it's, oh, I don't know, ½ inch thick or so. It's pretty thick. My thumb is about the same size as one width of that fingerprint. Now, what I was just showing you in the microscope is this little piece here that I broke off of this piece here, right, which is the entire fingertip. All right, and we'll see both sides in the CAT scan. It becomes quite obvious. This is the bone. What they do is break away all the things away, and then this is actually the bone, yes. And it's offset. You see it off to the left? That's a thumb, almost certainly, because they will offset the bone. You see how it's offset? That's a thumb. Okay, this is the piece I broke off, and this is the vein. It's plugged up. That right there, I don't know what it is, but it's part of this complex. And that's like a blue crystal. You know, you have all kinds of things in your body that nobody's ever really understood before because they've never seen it in this kind of detail turned into stone. Okay, my friends, Roger once again, and going back to the past. I originally did a lot of research on this back in 2012. I started in earnest. Now, it just so happens that somebody sent me a book that they wrote, and his name is Paul Amatucci. He wrote a book about mud fossils, and basically it's about my research. And it starts with, you know, he'd like to say thank you to Roger Spur, Mudfossil 2012, sharing the findings and all this. And this was one small step for humankind, one giant leap for the human mind. It's just too much for the human mind. And he goes through basically all the things that I was showing, and my logo, and you know, nucleophilic substitution is basically, and I'm going to be showing now the CAT scans, the DNA tests, and there's really nothing here that I can dismiss totally. Everything that I said, he was pretty, well, even the dragon, he's showing a dragon in the desert. There's a brain. And again, I can't dismiss anything that he put in here. I haven't talked to Paul, and it just showed up one day, a week or two ago. And I just sort of thumbed through it and looked, and I you know, the giants, no question. And here they are, right here. A DNA tested, CAT scan, and he even talks about how I tried to present them to Yale University. Wouldn't allow it. They still don't allow it to this day. They were CAT scanned. I'll show you the CAT scans. DNA tests. I'll show you the DNA tests. Here's all the specimens. I got the microscope out. This is a bone ball on a knuckle of a fingertip. This is the fingertip. And this was CAT scanned, DNA tested. And, you know, there's little bones and pieces here and there. Everything turns to stone because of nucleophilic invasion, because of a hot water flood. You see how flat that is on the bottom? Everything I have is like that. Everything that was in a giant hot water flood. This lung was DNA tested and CAT scan. The CAT scan, you can't really see much. You see how flat that is? That's the key. That's why they were preserved, because all of the fleshy stuff was basically boiled and washed away and sort of eroded. And all of the stuff that was protected by membranes became preserved. This was in a really muddy condition, so it really basically turned almost exclusively to mud. When you look at that, you say, well, that's just a big pile of mud. No, it isn't. That's a fingertip. And that's an apical tuft. And I have other ones here that eroded out completely. I have so much evidence here, it's stunning that it is not allowed All right, they call that suppression of valid scientific information. And that's, I don't know if they're supposed to be able to do that at Yale. So say we don't want to see it because it doesn't fit the paradigm. I don't think that's right, but that's what I'm up against. And I've been up against it for 10 years. And here's my buddy Caesar Augustus. He's a goose. And here's his feathers. And he died the same thing, flat in the mud. His throat and everything is in there, but now it's nucleophilic substitution, and that is, he explains that in the book too. I didn't really go deep into all those little details, but it's a good coffee table book because it's something that you can look at and see the earth and the sea, the 5 zones. All of these things were written about in history, and if you read Apollodorus, it will blow your mind right out of your freaking head. Read Apollodorus about Typhon, because that's the dragon in the desert. Plus he's on maps and everything else. This is being suppressed. I'm not going to go along with it anymore. We're going to get this done, and we're going to change minds and hopefully some hearts.